Let's talk about Sparta. When you hear that name, you probably think of unbreakable warriors, right? A society built from the ground up for military perfection. But how much of that is the real deal and how much is just legend? Well, today we're going to try and crack that code by listening to an ancient Spartan himself. I mean, this quote right here, it's perfect. It captures that popular image of Sparta perfectly. They're fearless, they're unbeatable. It's the stuff movies are made of. This is the Sparta we all think we know. But here's the big question. Most of what we know about Sparta was actually written by outsiders. The rivals, the Athenians, or by writers from the Roman era looking back hundreds and hundreds of years later. So how do we find an authentic Spartan voice? How do we hear from someone on the inside? Well, we go to this man, Tyrtaeus. He was a poet, and he lived in Sparta way back around 650 BC, a really crucial time for them. Believe it or not, he's one of only two literary voices we have from inside ancient Sparta. He is our inside man. And this timeline, this is what makes him so important. Just look at the time gap. You've got Tyrtaeus, a Spartan, writing in a 7th century BC. Then you have our other big sources like Xenophon, an Athenian, and Plutarch, a Roman-era Greek, writing centuries later. This makes Tyrtaeus' perspective so unique. He isn't just looking back at the legend, he's actually helping to write the original code. So, what does this authentic Spartan have to say? Well, his most famous poems give us this incredible insight into the Spartan value system. He really hones in on the one quality that he believed mattered above all else, what the Greeks called arete, or excellence. Tyrtaeus has this brilliant way of making his point. He starts by telling his audience everything that excellence is not. It's like he's clearing the board of all the usual ideas before he puts his own down. First, he says, forget about being the fastest runner or the strongest wrestler. You could be an Olympic champion, and that's great, but according to him, that's not true excellence. Then he goes on to dismiss all the other stuff you might think of. Being rich, having a famous family, being handsome, even being a powerful king. No, none of that is true arete. And here it is, the punchline. For Tyrtaeus, the one, the only, true virtue is unwavering courage in the battle line, standing your ground. And notice what he calls it, a shared good. It's not about you as an individual. Your bravery benefits the entire city. Your personal glory is completely wrapped up in the survival of the community. So here's the full code he lays out. Stand firm. Protect the guy next to you. A glorious death in battle is the highest honor you can achieve. And running away, that brings shame not just on you, but on your entire family for generations. This is the bedrock of that Spartan military ideal. Okay, so this sounds great, right? We have an authentic Spartan telling us exactly what they valued. Problem solved. Well, not quite. For historians, Tyrtaeus is an amazing gift, but he's also a huge headache. The first problem is the type of writing he was doing. It's called martial elegy. You should think of this less like a history book and more like a coach's halftime speech or even wartime propaganda. Its whole purpose is to get soldiers fired up, to inspire them, to paint this perfect picture of the ideal warrior. It's telling Spartans how they should be, which isn't necessarily how they always were. The second problem is just a matter of time. Tyrtaeus is writing around 650 BC, but the classical Sparta we usually study, the one from the big wars against Persia and Athens, that's from about 478 to 404 BC. That's a gap of more than 170 years. I mean, think about how much the world has changed in the last 170 years. We can't just assume that the Sparta of 650 BC was exactly the same as the Sparta of 450 BC. And finally, there's the survival problem. It's like a massive, centuries-long game of historical telephone. We don't have everything Tyrtaeus wrote, not even close. What we have are bits and pieces that later writers, like Plutarch, decided to quote. And Plutarch was picking the quotes that made Sparta look perfect and heroic. What if Tyrtaeus wrote poems about fear, or doubt, or other things besides courage? Well, those probably didn't get quoted, so they're lost forever. It's a massive bias. So if the source is propaganda from the wrong time period and we only have these cherry-picked fragments, is it useless? No way, absolutely not. The trick isn't to throw the source away, it's to be really smart about how we use it. We can still connect the dots. The key is to see the difference between the internal ideal that Tyrtaeus was creating for Spartans and the external myth that later writers built around Sparta.
Tyrtaeus was giving Spartans a target to aim for, but later authors looked at that target and presented it as if every Spartan hit a bullseye every single time, creating that myth of the perfect warrior.
So, what's the solution for us as historians? It's all about critical cross-referencing. You can't just take Tyrtaeus as a literal description, but you can use him as a baseline. You can ask, were the values he was pushing back in the 7th century still showing up hundreds of years later? And this is where it all comes together. This is the payoff. Look at this. On the left, you have Tyrtaeus in 650 BC, saying a man must stand firm. On the right, nearly 300 years later, you have an Athenian, Xenophon, describing the brutal Spartan education system, the agosi, and what is it designed to do? To teach boys that it's honorable to stand and fight and disgraceful to retreat. The continuity is just stunning. Tyrtaeus gives us the ideology, Xenophon shows us the institution built to enforce it. And that, at the end of the day, is the true value of Tyrtaeus. No, he doesn't give us a perfect photograph of classical Sparta. He gives us something way more important, the ideological DNA. He shows us that the core values of the Spartan code weren't just invented later. They were forged in the fire of the 7th century and then passed down for hundreds of years. So it leaves us with this final big idea to chew on. The story of Tyrtaeus is a perfect reminder that so much of history is about memory. It pushes us to ask of any source we read, not just, did this happen, but also, why was this particular story told? And why was this the version that survived?